Hello, I'm Dr. John Ovick. I'm the Director of Student Services for the Benicia Unified School District, and I would like to welcome everyone to our town hall meeting, Vaping Awareness. Tonight, we're having a presentation from the Benicia High School Friday Night Live and the Solano Youth Coalition. It's a very exciting topic that we're able to cover because I know it affects so many kids, both at the middle school and high school, in our community and across the nation. I would now like to introduce Johanna Novak-Palmer, Program Management Youth Development with the Solano County Office of Education with the Tobacco Use Prevention Education. Johanna?
Thank you. Like Dr. Ovick said, I am with Solano County Office of Education's Youth Development Department, and I am the program manager for the Tobacco Use Prevention Education Grant, which is a grant that the Benicia Unified School District has decided to participate in this year. It's actually a 3-year grant, so we'll be working with them for the next 3 school years. That focuses on really preventing the use of tobacco products, which includes vapes, but extends to other products that contain nicotine, and as well as some co-occurring issues with cannabis, to be able to provide education, prevention, and intervention services for our students. Today is a great example of the prevention arm of it. We have our Friday Night Live members from Benicia High School, as well as members from our Solano Youth Coalition, which is a county-wide coalition under the Friday Night Live umbrella that does prevention, education, and awareness activities and events around the county on topics such as vaping and tobacco prevention, but also other issues that concern student health and safety, as well as community health and safety. These students have been working for months on this presentation. They've actually done a version of this that is specifically for youth down in Anaheim to about 50 other high school students, and we'll be getting other opportunities to do this around the county as well. So we're really happy to have them here, and I think that's really the voices you want to hear from tonight. So I'm gonna go ahead and have them introduce themselves. I also wanna let everybody know who are here in the audience. We have index cards and pens over on that table over there. If at any point during the presentation a question arises, please feel free to write that down, because after the presentation, we will transition into a panel. The panel will include both the students who are presenting tonight, as well as our school administrators, public health, and community coalition members who are working on the issues of tobacco and vaping in our communities. All right, I'm going to turn it over to our Friday Night Live and Youth Coalition members. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Caleb Bautista. I'm a junior at Benicia High School, and I've been part of the Friday Night Live program for 3 years now, starting in my freshman year, and this is also my first year part of the Solano Youth Coalition.
Hello, my name is Michelle Hahn, and I'm a junior at Benicia High School. I've also been part of Benicia Friday Night Live and the Solano Youth Coalition for around 3 years now.
Hi, my name is Aiden Lee, and I've been a member of FNL from freshman year, and I'm a sophomore at Benicia High School.
Hello, my name is Ethan, and I'm a freshman in Buckingham High School, and I've been a part of this is my first year with Friday Night Live.
My name is Nimitsa Khan. I'm a sophomore at Benicia High School, and this is my first year doing Friday Night Live and Solano Youth Coalition.
All right, so to begin this presentation, I'd like to lead everyone in a little activity, a pop quiz. So if you want to answer, I'll go through the options and you can raise your hand. And these questions are all about the common misconceptions about tobacco. So for the first question, what % of smokers in the US began smoking before the age of 19? Do you think it's A, 30%? I'll get a raise of hands. B, 50%. Or C, 90%? Well, you'd be right, because it is 90%. So this means that many smokers begin in their adolescent years. All right, this one's more of a true-false. So e-cigarettes, the statement is that e-cigarettes are a better alternative to smoking. Do you think this is true or false? That would be correct. That is false. All right. E-cigarette companies have targeted the vulnerable populations by putting billboards outside of mental health clinics. Is this a true statement or a false statement? This is a true statement. You guys are really good at this. All right. Another fact is, or another statement is that the most common reason youth give for continuing to use e-cigarettes is I'm feeling anxious, stressed, or depressed. Is this A, true, or B, false? Good job. It is true. All right. And for our last question, in California, what is the legal age to purchase a tobacco product? Is it A, 18, B, 21, or C, 25? The answer is B, 21. So no minors are allowed to have access to buying or the use of tobacco products. So congratulations. I hope you all know a lot more about the common misconceptions about tobacco and you have uncovered those truths.
In the National Youth Tobacco Survey, over 3 million middle and high school students admitted to using tobacco at least once in the past 30 days. 16.5% of high school students and 4.5% of middle school students currently use tobacco products. An issue is that youth e-cigarette use remains a serious public health concern. E-cigarettes have been the most commonly used tobacco product among the youth since 2014. More than 2.5 million students currently use e-cigarettes. Among current youth e-cigarette users, more than 1 in 4 used e-cigarettes daily. The most common used device type was disposables, and approximately 85% used flavored e-cigarettes.
I know many of you are thinking that California has recently banned the flavored tobacco use, but you might be thinking that solves the problem. It does, but at the same time, it doesn't. Senate Bill 793 prohibits tobacco relators from selling most tobacco-flavored products, prohibiting the sale of including flavored e-cigarettes, menthol cigarettes, as well as tobacco flavor enhancers in retail stores. But big tobacco companies have already found law loopholes in the flavor ban. Big tobacco companies do not discriminate. They spend billions of dollars every year to market to the next generation of addicts. They target vulnerable populations and minorities such as the Black American community, youth, LGBTQ+ communities, and people with behavioral health problems with advertising. For example, in 1996, major tobacco companies wanted to boost sales in the San Francisco area. By targeting the LGBTQ community and homeless people, this plan was called Project Scum, subculture urban marketing.
What are statistics locally? In 2019 to 2020, countrywide data showed youth vaping trends are similar, if not slightly less, than the state and national averages. But in Benicia, your numbers for middle school were slightly lower, while your non-traditional students or alternative education students were much higher than state and local averages. Benicia students who reported using e-cigarettes or vaping products in the past 30 days remained stable for 7th graders and decreased for 9th and 11th graders in 2022 and 2023. 3% of 9th graders, down from 9% in 2022, and 6% of 11th graders, down at 8% in 2020, report using vaping devices in the past 30 days, which means prevention works. Let's take an even closer look at the numbers in this graph. You can see the devastating effects of nicotine use is having on our students' mental health. We are finding that some youth may turn to vaping to deal with stress and anxiety, creating a cycle of nicotine dependence, but nicotine addiction can become a source of stress. What may start as a social experimentation can become an addiction to nicotine.
So, to better understand the effects of tobacco on mental health, we first have to look at what makes smoking a cigarette or an e-cigarette or a vape so bad. This can all be traced back to a chemical called nicotine, which is a drug that is found in most tobacco products, such as vapes, e-cigarettes, cigars, and many more. Nicotine can also be classified as a stimulant as it increases physical and psychological activity in your brain and in your body. Nicotine is also a highly addictive substance in the way it affects your brain and its functions. For example, nicotine affects the parts of the brain that control attention, learning, impulse control, and mood. This is especially relevant in youth brains that are not fully developed until they are midway into their 20s, around 25 years old. Another important fact to note is that some vape product labels aren't always completely honest with their concentration of nicotine. For example, a CDC study was done in the United States, and it found that 99% of nicotine products sold in store of tobacco products sold in stores contain nicotine. So now let's look at the effects of nicotine on the brain. So when a smoker or a vapor inhales a product, nicotine is transferred through smoke particles through your airways into your lungs. From there, it is dissolved into your bloodstream and makes its way to your brain. And once nicotine from tobacco products enters your brain, nicotine causes the release of pleasure-inducing chemicals like dopamine. This starts to create a link between having nicotine in your system and having these feelings of pleasure and euphoria. This is really detrimental because once nicotine doesn't get those pleasure-inducing chemicals, this can lead to cravings and more tobacco use and increased symptoms of stress, anxiety, and higher rates of depression. And on that note, let's look deeper at the relationship between mental health and tobacco. So now that we know the science behind it, we can look at some facts. People aged 12 to 17 are 2.5 times more likely to report using cigarettes in the past month if they've experienced a major depressive episode in the past year. This is also detrimental because, as stated before, nicotine products and nicotine companies target their ads towards minorities like this. Like, for example, how they were put outside mental health clinics, right? So this abuse and this cycle of nicotine dependence leads to increased feelings of hopelessness, anxiety, and irritability. Furthermore, this also leads to other side effects like tolerance to actual medications. So you need more of a medication to feel that therapeutic relief. So yeah.
But one of the big marketing point on vaping and e-cigarettes is vapor is safer. One of the biggest misconceptions about vaping is that it's just water. Instead, vapes produce aerosol. E-cigarette aerosol contains nicotine, ultrafine ultrafine particles that can be inhaled deep into the lungs, flavorings that are linked to lung disease, cancer-causing chemicals, and heavy metals such as nickel, tin, and lead. E-cigarette aerosol exposes both the user and unwilling bystanders to harmful substances. E-cigarette aerosol has coined a new term called third-hand smoking. This means that the residue from smoking and vaping attaches to surfaces. This residue can last for months on indoor surfaces. Think of hairspray aerosol, and now imagine that going straight into your lungs. Just because vapes are advertised as safer than cigarette does not mean that it is safer. These side effects listed are just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the risks of vaping. Because vapes have not been around too much, we are still learning about the health risks of vapes carry, not to mention the potential battery explosions that have caused serious injuries and burns. Unfortunately, we don't have the time to explore the environmental impact that vape and e-cigarette devices are having. But what we do know is it creates a much wider health impact on our communities, as these products affect our water, soil, air, and including secondhand and third-hand vape residue. This is an example of how much nicotine is in a pack of cigarettes, about 20 milligrams of nicotine, and that is equivalent to 20 cigarettes. This is an Elf Bar 600, and it has 40 milligrams of nicotine, and it is equivalent to 40 cigarettes. This is an Elf Bar 3000. It has 150 milligrams of nicotine, and it is equivalent to 150 cigarettes.
So now that we know about the general harms of vaping, we can now do another pop quiz, but this time this will be on local statistics that are based here in Benicia. And this was collected by the 2022 to 2023 California School Climate, Health, and Learning Survey. So, what percentage of Benicia ninth graders reported that it's fairly or very easy to obtain a vape device? So raise your hand if you think it's A, 8%, B, 70%, C, 51%, or D, 15%? So the answer actually is C, 51%. So what percentage of Benicia High School 11th graders have ever used the vape product? You think it's A, 16%, B, 11%, C, 8%, or D, 49%? So the answer actually is B, 11%. Yeah, go. So, 1 out of 3 of United States middle and high school students who have ever used an e-cigarette reported using marijuana in the devices. You think this is A, true, or B, false? The answer is true. Now, what percentage of Benicia High School 11th graders use marijuana in the past 30 days? Is it A, 3%, B, 15%, C, 9%, or D, 21%? So the answer is C, 9%. And this has actually been the lowest rate it has ever been since 2003.
Flume, Elf Bar, Wax Pens, Vibes Air, and Puff Bar, which are very popular among youth populations due to their flavors, accessibility, and color. You can easily charge it at home with a USB port, which is really easy to do. So here are some of the vapes that can be hidden in plain sight, as students may want to disguise the fact that they're vaping. There's signs of inhalers, pens, a Game Boy, and even watches. The symbol you see above is a cannabis warning symbol, meaning that vapes contain way more than just nicotine. It contains marijuana. Its use for people under the age of 21 can be very detrimental as it impairs cognition and may be habit forming, especially among the youth population.
So now here are some tips for parents. If you have ever experienced seeing your child going through a difficult mental time or have actually seen them using addictive substances, it is so important to talk with your kids. And you can follow these steps to actually demonstrate how to talking with your kids actually goes. So first, it's so important to show your love and concern. Make sure to explain how you're feeling about them using addictive substances so you can create a connection with them so it can create a safe environment for you to talk with one another. Then approach them with an open mind and heart. So this means not being defensive with your words or judgmental, and make sure to pay attention to your facial expressions and tones of voice so they know that you're open to understanding what they're going through and things like that. And make sure to use reflective listening. So basically what this means is to make sure to nod your head when you're talking to them, saying that I understand what you're going through. Make sure that you guys make a good connection with one another. And also, if you're not understanding something, make sure to say, can you elaborate more? So you can gain more insight into what they're going through and coming up with ideas on how to help them more. Finally, when you're done with the conversation, it might have a bit tense between one another, but always give lots of praise and positive feedback. Make sure to thank them for approaching you and talking with you about their feelings, and also opening up to you so you can make sure to create another safe environment for them to talk to you once again.
All right. So obviously starting the conversation isn't very easy, but here are some questions to ask if you need help starting that conversation. These questions include, what do you know about vaping? What do you think about vaping? What should adults know about vaping? Are there a lot of people who vape at your school? And how has vaping impacted you? What would you do if someone offered you a tobacco product? And finally, what can I do to help you stay tobacco free? These questions are important to ask because it not only looks into their personal life, but it also gets a sight of how the child's community is. And keep in mind to always use compassion, and every kid is different. So if a question needs to be edited or fit to your lifestyle and your child's love languages and their way of learning, then do that.
Students struggling with addiction will most likely not admit to it or ask for help due to punishment. That's why it's very important to know that many students choose not to use tobacco products. But if you suspect your child is, talk to them first. Searching through the belongings without their permission or snooping around the room might make them feel attacked and cause them to withdraw from confrontation. Having an honest conversation and asking questions in a non-judgmental way can help give your students the help and support they need when stuck in addiction. Remember that majority of students are not to use, but if you suspect your student is using, talk to them first. Searching their belongings or going through their things might make them feel attacked and can withdraw. Emphasize compassion and being non-judgmental during your conversations.
This is actually my one slide, so. What is being done? Like I said, I'm from the County Office of Education, and we have a tobacco use prevention education grant. There are three main components to that grant that we are providing technical assistance and support to all of our districts. The first of that being offering a tobacco and drug-free prevention curriculum. We have 3 curriculum options for our schools, and those curriculum can be used in middle and high schools as low as 6th grade all the way up to the 12th grade. And most of those curriculum, they cover the topic of vaping, but really the majority of it is about learning refusal skills, goal setting skills, and making healthier decisions, as well as learning a little bit about the consequences of tobacco and other drug use. So we tried to find something that was really well-rounded and holistic and that could be used in a variety of settings so that our schools could find ways to integrate it into their classrooms. The second component of that, actually, I'm going to skip to the bottom of the slide, which is our intervention and cessation resources for schools. We've selected resources that are age appropriate for young people as low as the age of 12, all the way up through their mid-20s. We have one-on-one programs that we can teach staff to be able to provide to students. We have small group programs as well as virtual and phone services that we can do referrals to. So we want to make sure that our schools, if our students are caught using on campus instead of using punitive measures, which we know don't work, students will just go home if they're suspended and continue to use. Instead, we want them to be in school to continue to learn, but also to be learning about the consequences of what using a tobacco product does to not only their health, but their ability to learn and be able to have healthy relationships on their campus. And we also want them to start thinking about the possibility of quitting. What does that look like? And going down that road to hopefully want to access cessation services, which is also an online and phone program that we use for our students that have actual counselors to help them go through that process. We'll have a website or a page at the end of the presentation that actually has links for all of those programs. And we also have some hard copies of things over on the resource table for those of you who are in the room. The final bit is our youth development, which is we have used Friday Night Live as our main youth development component for the tobacco prevention grant. Friday Night Live was chosen because it is a youth leadership and advocacy program that really puts the power in young people's hands to make change in their communities and be resources to other students, their peers, as well as the families in their communities. I think you can see that through the young people that are here today presenting, but it is also an opportunity for them to connect statewide, because Friday Night Live is a statewide program. There are over, I think, 6,000 young people in the state of California who participate in Friday Night Live. It is an evidence-based program. It has good science behind it, but it is also about building relationships and building community, which we think is the key factor to building a young person's resilience and making good decisions. So I will pass this back to the students so that they can finish their presentation.
So to build off of that, we actually have statistics regarding Friday Night Live. So Friday Night Live is targeted for for high school students, and we're supported by our adult partnerships that help foster our growth and help us step up to make changes in our community. So after every FNL year, over 150 students all over Solano County actually take this survey to detail what the impacts of FNL was throughout their school year. So it actually shows that FNL builds skills. So we actually built our soft skills such as active listening and examining community issues, planning events, developing an action plan, and so much more that help us throughout our college years, our adult years, and even in school every day. We also see that FNL promotes positive youth development. So we see that 100% of FNLers report increased community engagement, and also that FNL supported their leadership development, and that it provides a safe environment for us to talk about our issues and things like that, that provide this area in school during every lunch that we can just go to and talk about our feelings and be part of a community. This is some of our personal Benicia Friday Night Live achievements that we have done over the years. So we actually, on the left, you see the poster, and actually Caleb and I putting up these posters, but this is our positive norms campaign that we do with posters that help, that show teenagers around the school that to stop underage drinking and to be part of a majority of students that do not drink. So we actually posted these posters all around the school, First Street, and Southampton for adult targeted areas and youth targeted areas. And we also presented the brain dance at the youth summit to students of FNL programs all over California and Anaheim. And the brain dance is basically a way for us to identify our stress and ways that we can relieve the stress. We also participated in a statewide data collection called Road Watch, and where we sat before school and watched people drive past us and made a checklist. And this basically showed the behavior of drivers around school and before school. And we also participated in our school's Red Ribbon Week, where we set up a little booth on the little stage and passed out swag items and pamphlets about substance abuse and how to prevent that in teenagers. We also made a public service announcement in 2021 to 2022, which was actually shown to our graduating seniors of the class of 2022. And it basically just details healthy alternatives to drinking after prom, since it is seen that after prom, during prom night, teenagers are more enticed to drink and party and things like that.
Hey yo, do you want to go to a super cool party after prom?
Yeah, you should totally come. I heard there's gonna be alcohol too.
Come on, do what your friends say and go to the party and get drunk. Who cares if it's irresponsible?
No, don't listen to your friends. The consequences of drinking far outweigh anything you can get from it. Choose a healthy and more enjoyable alternative instead.
Why don't we go to that cool karaoke place and have fun while being responsible?
Ooh, that sounds like fun.
Yeah, let's do that.
Here are some professional resources we could take a look at. And if you could take a second and you could take a picture of it. And Joanna and Rebecca will have more information on brochures.
You want a photo? Is that what you said? Oh. Okay. I'll take it back real fast. There we go. So these are just a handful of the photos or of the resources that we have that we provide to our schools, but also have more information on the issues of tobacco, vaping, and underage tobacco use, which is a very, very complicated and in-depth problem that our young people have really beautifully summed up in 30 minutes. So I just want to give a shout out to these young people. And we are going to do a 5-minute break so we can transition the next step. We're going to have a panel of our administrators from our Benicia schools, as well as a district administrator, a representative from public health, as well as our Tobacco Education Coalition. So give us a couple of minutes and we will be right back. Thank you. Okay, we're going to transition into our question and answer period for our panel. But before we actually get to the questions, which I know you're all dying to hear, I'm going to give a moment for each of you to be able to introduce yourselves. What is your role here, as well as what is your experience with tobacco or vaping in your community or on your school or in your district? And we'll start, actually, I'm going to start on this side. Principal Nelson.
My name is Mark Nelson. I am the principal at Benicia Middle School. This is my first year at Benicia Middle School. Prior to that, I was a child in middle school in Dublin for 2 years, and then I was an assistant principal in Mill Valley for 10 years. And I did a lot of work with the Mill Valley Aware and the Marin County Healthy Living Coalition. So we did a lot of work around alcohol and other drug awareness then my role sort of shifted when I became a principal, so I'm excited to be back in Benicia. We have we work with partner with Solano County Office of Ed with our TP program, and that's right.
Fantastic. All right. Oh yeah, please.
sorry.
Yeah,
You guys know-
if
you
you
guys
can
hear me?
remember to do that, that way the audience online can hear
it's
you.
online.
Yes.
All right, I'll give it a try. Brianna Kleinschmidt, principal at Benicia High School, and I actually was a member of Friday Night Live at Benicia High School many years ago. So it's awesome that the program is still going and has grown the way that it has. And so within my role, definitely supporting the different programs that we have at Benicia High School, education programs, but also working to find educational opportunities rather than just school discipline for students who maybe are struggling with use or with addiction. I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit later as well, but that's the quick version, I guess.
Good evening. I'm Dr. John Ovick. I'm the Director of Student Services here for the Benicia Unified School District. My experience with tobacco and vaping really came with my experience as a middle school vice principal, principal of a K-8 elementary school, and then most recently at a middle school being a principal for 8 years, and really seeing the drastic change coming back to school last year with the amount of vaping that was occurring on the campus of the school that I worked at.
Hello, my name is Michelle Hahn, and I'm a junior at Benicia High School. I've had firsthand experience of being surrounded by people that use vape products, and I also serve as one of the presidents of Benicia Friday Night Live, and I've been a member of the Solano Youth Coalition for around 3 years now.
Hello again. My name is Caleb Bautista. I'm a junior at Benicia High School. I serve as the other president of Benicia Friday Night Live. And same as Michelle, I've witnessed tobacco use firsthand and its effects on people and how it's affected relationships. I'm here to give my opinion, or not opinion, but my point of view from a youth community and how it affects that. Yeah.
Tracy Nishan, Solano County Public Health. I'm a supervising health education specialist, and one of the programs I oversee is the Tobacco Prevention and Education Program, which is an allocation through the California Department of Public Health, the tobacco prevention programs. And I'm here to hopefully provide some insight with some of the efforts that we are currently working on in Solano County at large. And I would have to say that Benicia was one of the first cities in our county that actually did incorporate in 2019, December 2019, with the assistance of Friday Night Live Group and other youth that we were, I wouldn't say we, former Mayor Patterson was very successful, and the city council at that time did pass several ordinances around tobacco, which was a tobacco retail license in addition to a smoke-free multi-unit housing ordinance, which has many different, for the tobacco retail license, has many different encompassing things. So we're here to kind of help provide some of that insight as well.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Rebecca Floyd. I am the project coordinator in the Youth Development Department at the Solano County Office of Education. I assist Johanna on the Tobacco Use Prevention Education grant for our county. I also provide support for our Solano County Friday Night Live programs. And then I also serve as co-chair of the Tobacco Free Solano Coalition. And I've been with the Youth Development Department for 10 years, working in tobacco prevention education. And I will pass it to Joseph.
Hello. I am the other co-chair of Tobacco Free Solano. I have been volunteering, and I actually started in another lifetime when I was in law school, and I got very angry at the big tobacco and how they were targeting different communities. So I started my activism then, but I moved to Solano County about 3 years ago, and I joined Tobacco Free Solano, and I also volunteer with LGBTQ minus tobacco, another Bay Area organization, and happily working on a bunch of things here in Solano.
I want to thank all of you for being here tonight and giving us your time. We will be asking a series of questions. If you feel that you have a great answer or that you have an answer you would like to share, we're just going to open the space up and go ahead and begin answering. We ask that you keep your answer to 2 minutes or less. 30 seconds is fine or less. We just want to make sure that we provide enough time and space for everybody to be able to lend their voice to the questions. The questions are going to be moderated by Namat today, and Ethan is actually who's back in the audience. He's going to be keeping time, so if you're nearing that 2-minute point, he'll wave to you and let you know your time is about up. Go ahead and wrap it up. All right. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Namat.
Okay, so to start off for our first question for the panel, are there any community initiatives or programs aimed at preventing and addressing teenage vaping?
I can talk. Obviously, the presentation we just gave was all about our program called Friday Night Live. There are multiple chapters not only around Solano County, but statewide as well, which all address problems about youth tobacco use, and like not only that, but it attacks problems like mental health and other things like that. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have any more?
There's another partner organization that we work with in addition to LGBTQ minus tobacco. It is called the Bay Area Community Resources, and we call them BACR, acronyms in the world. And they were part of the instrument of making change in Vallejo last year for the smoke-free multi-unit housing ordinance. They went to the city council, and so it's a group of young people, again, getting together just much like you folks that are advocates for their own community. They have started a new chapter or a new cohort of individuals that are actually now in city of Fairfield, that they are now working and looking towards efforts again for a tobacco retail license as well. So it's another youth serving group that is coming together for their community.
Okay, thank you so much. For our next question, do you think social media contributes to the problem of vaping? If so, how?
Definitely. So on social media, we have seen so many people posting about their tobacco products or vape products, seeing that it seems to be cool or like popularized. So it kind of makes others like think, oh, I'm missing out. Like it entices them to like buy these products, to like participate in these like the action of like consuming nicotine and things like that, to fit in basically. So social media definitely does contribute to it and kind of like popularized it, honestly. Yeah.
I'll speak to that as well. I think that one of the problems with social media is you only see one side, right? So you see the part of it that maybe is trying to look cool or have the longest breath or exhale, or there's contests and things like this, right? Or it's very easy to see someone famous who's holding a vape in their hand, and you don't see the other side. You don't see the negative effects or the addiction side of it. So unfortunately, I think it's very often that we see singers, actors, different people, and that's in their hand. They're just walking around. It's pretty easy to spot now.
I'd like to add that Big Tobacco also uses that metadata to send e-coupons, and that's another way that they target the youth, because they obviously don't check the age of the people on social media. And that's one of the things that tobacco retail licenses can help to thwart, is the use of coupons for discounted tobacco, which is what makes it more affordable for younger people to purchase it.
And to a positive use of social media is some of the campaigns in which we are doing at Public Health, and we'll be looking to do some campaigns in the beginning of next year in the spring, is utilizing social media as well to try to counter those positive or the negative ads that we see for tobacco. And even looking at the quick history of social media, which is a very short period of time, Juul they used social media everywhere. That's how people did it, and it's the same competitions of trying to blow a puff ring, which is somewhat difficult and challenging with a vape device compared to a traditional combustible cigarette. So we are using social media in a positive manner to approach that and providing that information and education to people.
And
And I love hearing that it's being used in a positive manner, because the point that I was going to make is social media so much focuses on the negative. I was just having a conversation with my school site council chair, and we were talking about the Yelp rule. So if you're going to go look at Yelp for a business and it's got 4.5 stars, you're going to comb through those until you find the 1 star and focus on that. And that's the problem with social media. And so many times you see these TikTok challenges to go trash a bathroom. Well, all of a sudden that just spreads like wildfire, and it creates this perception that this is what's going on every day. So when you see kids vaping on social media and that gets shared, and then it gets shared again, and then it gets shared again, all of a sudden you have this perception that doesn't really match the reality. And I want to point to the presentation, which you guys did a fantastic job. 11%. 11% of high school juniors vape. Many of us think that number is much, much higher because of social media, when it's actually much, much lower. So I really appreciate the positive. The more we can flood social media with positive ad campaigns, the better.
Okay, thank you guys so much. And for our next question, what resources or support systems are available for parents to help their children quit vaping? In your opinion, what role does peer pressure play in the prevalence of vaping among adolescents?
I'll start with that one. So actually, the Solano County Office of Education, we've got a pretty extensive tobacco use prevention education webpage that has not only like community resources, but also has educator resources, and it has parent education resources. So it's everything from talking to your student about like our presentation covered today, how to start that conversation. What are the local resources? Where like what is available here in the county? And I do think peer pressure plays a role in youth vaping, right? There's only so many times, even as adults, we experience peer pressure, but there's also such a thing as positive peer pressure. And I think that's one thing that in particular our Friday Night Live program is really striving for, not only those positive social media campaigns, but those positive peer pressure, right? The majority of youth are not using these products. And so just making sure that we get that message out there.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for that. For our next question, how are students getting vapes? As a community, what can we do to limit or stop access to vapes?
All right, a few eyes came my way, so I'll jump in. So, from our knowledge from talking to high school students, sometimes when they've been caught with a vape, we definitely ask. They don't always tell us, of course, where they're getting them from, but we're very glad to hear that it's usually not within the city of Benicia in terms of where it originated from, unless it's from sometimes it may be an older sibling, sometimes even a parent who might not realize. So definitely, their environment is a huge piece of that. And so I do feel like we're pretty lucky in Benicia, and with the work that our students and our community has done, it is harder for teenagers to get them. And so often it is peer pressure, it's friends, it's being in a group and it's available, and someone tries it. And, from there, that seems to be the introduction. I know that for Benicia High School, at least, there's a lot of talk, especially last year, about vaping in the bathrooms. That seems to have declined, although students can tell me if I'm wrong about that. That seems to have declined, partially because of our knowledge, attention, and really getting into to check that as often as possible and trying to change some of the messaging around that. When I was in high school, the bathroom was not the place to hang out with groups of people. And so it's interesting how that's changed. And I think, it's interesting to think of, the rise really happened. We really noticed it in probably 2017, 2018, looking at our statistics, looking at our suspensions. And so we had to change some of what we were doing. And COVID, distance learning, I think maybe made it even worse because students were at home. They access might have changed, just not being in the school environment where there's so many adults and staff around checking in. And so coming back from distance learning seemed to rise yet again. But very glad to see that this year especially has been a major decline from what we've seen with vaping on campus.
Brianna touched on it on one of the places you can get, and I hate to say it, but parents. I've had 4 or 5 students I've confiscated vapes from, and 2 of them got them from their parents. One of which asked for it back, to which I said no. So they're getting it from their parents. Reminds you of that commercial back in the 80s when I was growing up. Is, parents who have drugs have kids who have drugs. Who taught you how to do this? So it's important that as parents we be role models for our kids and talk with them about about the harmful effects of vaping that it can have on the body and your health and your overall social emotional well-being. So it's really important as parents that we be parents and that we set role models for our kids.
I'd like to add on to that just quickly. As public educators, we are mandated reporters, and if a child has a vape at school and we believe it's from the home, we're obligated to report that to the California Child Protective Services. Also, with California Ed Code, we do need to contact our local police department to get a incident report so that they can take that illegal product as evidence as part of the incident report. So just from the administrative perspective, being a mandated reporter and following Ed Code, just wanted to highlight those 2 things as well.
Yeah, to build off of that, I can confirm that students do generally get their tobacco products and vape products from older people, like parents and especially siblings. And they also get it through social media too, like these plug accounts or like people that are selling these and like actually mass follow like students from Benicia and like Vallejo, like targeting high school students. And students also generally get these products from cities that actually sell vape products to minors. And I think we really need to focus on like tobacco retail ordinances and like merchant projects to like stop them from selling from minors because
Very
that's
well
illegal.
Yeah, that's actually one of the things we're working on is a tobacco retail license for Vallejo, which of course, with its proximity to Benicia, you can imagine the statistics before COVID, especially on the tobacco retailers in Vallejo that sold are the highest in the Bay Area. So it's very important that Vallejo pass a TRL, tobacco retail license, as they've done here in Benicia. It is actually actively being written by the city attorney and the city manager. It is expected to go to city council for a vote. And actually with some of those youth from Bay Area Community Resources who gave a presentation at Vallejo City Council for this TRL in May. It was very well received by the mayor and the city council there. And we actually want to encourage parents here in Benicia to think about when this is agendized on the Vallejo City Council, it would behoove the parents here to also advocate for it so that Benicia youth don't have easy access to tobacco retailers, of which there are 90 in the city of Vallejo, which is ridiculous also.
So to add another brick to the wall that we're hopefully building here, definitely agree with Joseph on that, is that a part of our objectives in public health and our tobacco prevention education program is to work with cities to develop these ordinances. And we're trying to work our way up the corridor. And so we're looking at trying to do within the county unincorporated areas as well. There are 12 retailers in the county unincorporated area. Here in Benicia, I believe there's only 17 retailers now, but in comparison where you do go to Vallejo, you have those 90 plus retailers that are there. And by incorporating the tobacco retail license, it makes them accountable. And it's just like in the cases to where many retailers are not selling to youth. They're not selling the products of the flavored products that they're not supposed to be selling, but there are some that are still doing it. And to kind of answer the question of the California Healthy Kids Survey from the 2021 survey, 2022 actually, the ease of access question. And by the way, I want to definitely thank the district and also the Sonoma County Office of Education for implementing that survey. Hi, how you doing? Last point. That's my personality. I'm dry sense of humor. Excuse me. Ease of access. Yes, thank you. You advocate. So the in 7th graders. So this is a 7th grade, 9th grade, and 11th grade survey. So 7th graders, their ease of access question that they answered went up from 29 to 30%. So 30% of 7th graders said it's easy for me to get this product. 9th graders went up from 48 to 51%. And then for the 11th graders, it went actually at a decrease from 61 to 55%. So it is kind of fluctuating, but they still think that and relatively is easy to get it. How do they think it's easy? It's from the other access. It's not just from your retailers, but it's from the older siblings, and it's from adults. It's from other persons who are purchasing these items, and they're being followed around, much like in the days of the food trucks, where you would follow that one particular food truck. There are individuals who are selling these products as that too, and they're known in the community. So thank you.
And I just want to add on to something that Michelle brought up was with regards to social media. So there are people out there who have social media accounts with different monikers that are quote unquote dealers in the community, where they will buy these products in bulk, or they will have these products in bulk, and they'll reach out to kids, and kids know their moniker or their handle via Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, whatever it may be, and they'll direct message them and set up a meet to purchase vapes, whether it be a marijuana vape or tobacco vape from themselves. So it's really important that you know each and every one of your child's friends on social media. So look at their Instagram, look at their Snapchat, look at their TikTok, make sure that you know each person that they are talking to, that they know each person they're talking to. And if you're suspecting that they're using, be sure to go through their social media to see where it is that they are getting from, where they are getting their vapes from, and to be sure to report it.
Okay, thank you. I feel like the next question is targeted towards our high school students. How is youth vaping affecting your experience as a student on the Benicia High School campus?
For me, I feel like it definitely has had its negative impacts on the way I navigate campus or the way other people navigate campus, because I know, as Ms. Kleinschmidt mentioned, it has been better this year, but last year I feel like it was definitely a problem. Like, we would have fire alarms go off every maybe week or other week, and we would all have to evacuate, and it would be this big thing, all because of someone vaping in the bathroom. As well as bathrooms would also be closed, so it wouldn't be accessible to for everyone. So you'd have to go across campus, or you'd have to do this, you have to do that. And we also noticed that even security, campus security, I've heard people who would be in stalls, and then campus security might be hey, what are you doing in there? Suspicion has increased and stuff like that. So yeah, it's just been it almost heightens tensions in a way.
Yeah, to add, especially with the closure of bathrooms, before when they weren't closed as often, I kind of avoided going to the bathroom during school, which is not something good to do, because generally I could kind of feel the atmosphere in the bathroom. It would smell super sweet. The smell would stick to my clothes, honestly, and I just didn't really want to be in that environment. And also, even in classrooms during my freshman year, I would see people use a vape right in class when the teacher walked out, and then blow it into their backpack. Or they would be charging their vape from their computer through a cord, and it would look like a USB. So but it has really gotten better. I haven't been avoiding the bathroom.
Now, not as a student, but I mean, even as a father, but more along the public health perspective lines, that with the closures of bathrooms, my own son, who I live in Pleasant Hill, so we're at College Park High School. He's a big time water drinker. He drinks water all day. So obviously he has to utilize the restrooms as much as possible, but he doesn't want to go in there. And so what he's doing is he's holding back. He's had a kidney infection because of it.
Okay, thank you. For our next question, are there any signs or red flags parents should be aware of regarding vaping among teens?
I'm seeing eyes on me right now. Yeah, I think sometimes it's I think it can be a little bit tricky, right? Because teenage years are tough years. There's no amount of money a person could pay me to go back to my teenage years. It just would not happen. I think the big thing is, it's natural for teenagers to change their interest as long as they replace it with a new one. If you're suddenly seeing your teen, stopping sports and not replacing it with another interest, that might be a red flag. But if they stop playing sports and they switch to art, they're replacing that interest with a new interest, and that's what we see as kind of as typical teenage behavior. They're starting to figure out what it is that they truly enjoy, and maybe sports was something that was started by their parents. I know for me, I could shoot a basketball probably before I could walk, even though that carried me all the way through till college. But I did replace certain sports with other sports. So I think that that's a big one. If you see a decrease in grades, and really, I have to commend the district for supporting this, and putting this and hosting this town hall, and having so many representatives and administrators from the school sites, but really kind of listening to those parent teacher conferences and attending those, and really listening to not just like how their students are doing academically, but also how they're doing socially and emotionally in class as well, because that's a big tell, not just grades, but also how they're are they participating, are they withdrawing in class and things like that. Our teachers and our school site tend to be the first line of defense when it comes to things like that. And so I think just being able to have those open dialogues and having such a supportive district and school sites for our students is a really big step to kind of combating that. So thank you.
I'd like to add on to that, just with as a parent and an educator, the importance of communication. And I want to thank the presentation earlier for really focusing on that. We all have implicit and unconscious biases, but at the same time, we have kids, and we need to know our kids and let our kids know that we can be trusted and that we trust them.
And I also kind of want to speak from more like a youth perspective, and seeing like people who I know personally like go through that cycle of like nicotine dependence and like starting to like become dependent, right? And like I feel like my relationship with them can like kind of mirror how like it may be with their parents. So some things that I noticed were like people would often become like distant. Like you could feel that like they weren't maybe as like involved, or like as Becca mentioned, like in class, like maybe they won't participate as much, maybe their grades are slipping. And like for me too, I noticed like they'd be hanging out with different people, like, and it would be like you'd be concerned, you'd be like, wait, like what's going on, like, and you just really want to like sympathize with them, but it's just so hard to like get into their heads, and it's just like, yeah, it's a lot of like isolation.
I appreciate what you said, and it kind of made me think of often people in general, adults, but teens also, who are vaping are going to be around other people who are vaping. It would be very rare that they would be in a group and be the only person, right? And so looking at friends, maybe a change in friends, new friends, things like that. And so as a parent, knowing who your student is hanging out with, maybe talking with their parents as well. I feel like that used to happen more, and it doesn't happen as much anymore. As much as we have phones and we feel connected, we're often disconnected because it seems so accessible, and yet we're not making the personal connection. So maybe having your students' friends over to meet them and just spend time around them. Sometimes we kind of joke, once all the kids are in the car, and they're all behind you, they're all talking, and they don't even realize you're listening, right? And so just being present for some of those conversations, kind of be a fly on the wall a little bit. But yeah, definitely, any kind of pattern of withdrawing, if you're having those conversations and asking those questions, you can probably tell a lot by some of the body language, the nonverbal cues as well. And if there's any concern or suspicion, having that tough conversation to ask. It seems, at least at the high school level, like often that our students who are vaping, that can lead to other things as well, THC and marijuana use. And so it's worth having the conversation before it gets to that point also.
Okay, thank you. And I'll be moving on to our next question. This is, I feel like, more targeted towards our health professional. Are there any known long-term effects of vaping that I should be aware of?
You're looking at me. I am not a doctor. What I can say is that the long-term effects are yet to be identified, simply because these products have only been around for just a little over a decade or so now, where it has taken decades for us to find out the effects that have come from the traditional combustible cigarette. What we do know, and over on the wall, and also within some of the items over there, that we do know with vape that the aerosol that is exhaled out, there is lead. There are other chemicals that we do know that are cancer causing, that are very similar to that of which are in combustibles. So there are over 40 products that are expelled into the air. And thinking of the possibility of these different chemicals that are being used to create these different flavors and these different combinations of things. So the studies are ongoing. That's something to be determined. And with the tobacco industry, they'll tell you that these products are safer, that they're used for cessation purposes. There is not one yet single vape device that has been approved by the FDA that has said that it is to be used for cessation purpose.
I'd like to add that tobacco company has had a very long history of plausible deniability, and there are risks that we all take, but one of the things that really struck home when the youth activists advocated for the smoke-free multi-unit housing in Vallejo last year was that they just wanted to live their best lives. And I tell people all the time who come up, say, oh, my grandma smoked a pack of cigarettes every day and she lived to be almost 100. You can also get a blindfold and run across the freeway and survive. But why would you? So if aliens came to this planet and we said, yeah, we think it's cool to take all these tiny particulates, yeah, some of them are carcinogenic, and we put them in our lungs and inhale them because it looks really cool, they'd probably turn around and look for another planet. It just astounds me that this is normalized. So there are a lot of other examples and anecdotes I have like that, but why take the risk if it's not studied, it's purposefully released out there, and it's not regulated. And that's something that tobacco industry has had an exemption for, unfortunately. And one day they will get their comeuppance, truly.
I'd like to add to just kind of piggybacking off of what's been said. We don't know the long-term effects, and your guys' generation are the new guinea pigs for this, right? Like Tracy said, talking about the chemicals that are expelled, there's, the big one for me is formaldehyde, which is used to embalm bodies to preserve them after they've died. Putting things like that into your body, it's when you think about it in that kind of context and you realize just where all of these other chemicals can be found in everyday products, there's you've got like rat poison and you've got the aerosol, but you also have like nail polish remover and things like that. So when you look at like where it is that all of these chemicals are also found and what they're used for, it's a little bit surprising that we still have this. And so that was just kind of piggybacking.
All right, I got it back on. But no, Rebecca just reminded me another component about it. It's the tobacco product waste. That we have the microplastics that are from many different, within the, the filter. It's not a filter, it's not a piece of paper. It's plastic products that are inside of that. It's also with all of the vape products that it's the plastic pods that are just being thrown away and thrown onto the ground, which are leaching into our surfaces. There are more studies now showing that all of us have microplastics in our body because these things have been leached into the surfaces, into the waterways, getting into the produce, getting into the fish, getting into the things which we all consume. They're now a part of our body systems. And so this is a part of these things that are out there. Now, is tobacco the only industry that's doing that? No, there are other products that are being the same thing. But it is environmentally now impacting us in other ways as well.
So I wanted to put something out there sort of as a parallel. While, I do have a doctorate, it is not a doctorate in medicine. I don't spend time at the hospital, but I wanted to share a parallel where back in my mom was born in 47, and in the 50s and 60s, her parents smoked. And back then, they didn't know the effects that it would have. When my mom was 60, she passed away of lung cancer. And while lung cancer is no reason for shame, there is a stigma attached to it. And so choices we make today, while they're rather risky, we don't know what they are, they potentially will have effects on 2, 3, 4 generations down the road. And that's with me as a child and my children as grandchildren.
I think a lot of us have personal stories, and that's exactly what got me motivated when I was in law school. I had lost my father. He was only 50, and he had years of suffering before that. So, like most smokers, he grew up in Hawaii. Someone handed him loose cigarettes. There was no package warning. He started smoking them to be cool, and at 50, he was dead. I later found out his own mother also died at 50 from smoking. So I never got to know my grandma. My daughter never got to know my father. And this is, part of the reason why I can't sleep at night thinking about how this industry is still proliferating and targeting my potential grandchildren, my prospective grandchildren. I don't want them growing up in a world where this is normalized. And unfortunately, it pervades even our, sure, they don't have commercials on TV anymore, if you can believe it. When I first started doing my activism, I was counting the billboards in neighborhoods of color and how it was malt liquor and tobacco products, especially the menthol products in Black neighborhoods. So when I watch a movie like Avatar, I get particularly upset that 500 years in the future, there's Sigourney Weaver smoking a cigarette as a doctor 500 years in the future on a spaceship. What could possibly go wrong? So this is the kind of normalization I'm talking about. And there's a long history of many directors and producers taking money from the tobacco industry to create characters, the cool ones, that are smoking cigarettes. So it may not be a paid commercial on television, but it's still a huge message to our children.
And it's to add also into the health effects. Everything we've kind of said right to this point is for those who are the user of the product. It is the non-user who is sitting next to you that is being exposed to that secondhand smoke, of which a person, when they inhale, they're only taking in about 15% of that product. They're exhaling the other 85% out into the air. It is also the third-hand smoke, which was mentioned in the presentation. These are the products which are on the walls, the ceilings. In a rental unit, you can actually, for an apartment that was used by a tobacco user, you can move the refrigerator and you have discoloration. My neighbors across the street that had bought the house 12 years ago, the original owner back in 1958, her and her husband were lifetime tobacco users. They basically had to tear the interior of the entire house out to help mitigate those issues. And even still then, it was in the studs of the building itself. So it is never gone. Even when you cover it over with paint products that are saying that, oh, this will help mitigate those issues, it is only going to mitigate it for a period of time. It doesn't cover it forever.
Okay, thank you so much. And for our next question, what steps can parents take to create an open dialogue with their children about vaping without alienating them?
Well, I thought the presentation did an excellent job of covering that. I don't know what more we can add. I think it's truly just starting the conversation, and that can be hard, and especially for a parent who maybe thinks, oh, my kid wouldn't do that. I don't have to worry about that. And maybe you don't, but maybe it's just having the conversation to see what they know, or to open up the ability that they can ask questions. Maybe they don't have anyone else to ask questions of. And so I think it starts there, and you guys did a great job of covering it. But as a parent, sometimes it is hard to have that conversation. There's so much else going on, right? And often the question is, how was your day? And the answer is a word or two. And it's finding or making the time. And sometimes it has to be really intentional, and maybe it's going out to get ice cream together, or something that just creates the space that wouldn't normally happen in a regular day. And then the conversation might go towards other topics also. But if you're not having the conversation with your kid, someone else is. It could be their friend, it could be somebody else, it could be online. And so, I don't know, much better to start that conversation ourselves.
Just to piggyback on that, I think just the more involved parents can be with their children, the better. So going out and get ice cream is a perfect example. Being involved with their extracurricular activities, talking with them, doing things on the weekend with them. Put the phone down and do something with them. Talk with them, play a board game, those types of healthy activities. Educate them around the dangers and what happens like physically and mentally when you vape, but also come from a place of support and care and love, and be there to catch them for when they fall. The more punitive we make things, or you're grounded if you do this, that's just going to alienate them further. So you want to be welcoming, you want to have open communication, you want to have good dialogue with them, and to show them that you love them.
Okay, thank you so much. For my next question, what advice do you have for someone who is trying to quit vaping, and what are the effective cessation strategies?
The cessation strategies.
Thank you.
There you go. It's a lot of people get cessation and sensation confused between the two. Backtrack. Several years ago, working with our drugs and substance abuse programs, there were individuals who were going through trying to get clean from different variety of drugs. And one guy simply told me, it was and is harder to quit cigarettes because of the nicotine than it was to quit crack. It is such an addictive product that most persons will not have success the first, second, or third time. It takes multiple times. It can take an opportunity where a person can be quit for several years, and then they start up again because something happens in their life and they remember that this is what helped them through originally. So it is a process that will take time and time again. And with youth, it can even take longer than an adult, because as we get older, we hope that we become more and more resilient. It's with youth, they're becoming resilient and learning how to be resilient. So it's by joining the groups that these folks are a part of, it helps to develop those skill sets and to not start in the first place. The variety of programs that are out there, a lot of them have gone online. A lot of them have gone to phone call systems. Kick It California is the one we tend to refer most people to. So we don't have a cessation program within public health anymore because it was primarily in person, and it was a 12-week course where persons would come in weekly. Often they would not come all the way through the process. So it's the online services and really meeting people where they're at and meeting their needs at that point.
I encourage people to think about how much they're going to be spending. And when they look at the average lifetime cost of what this addiction, not a habit, addiction costs them, they think twice. The other thing is that when it comes to cessation, there are already, like Kick It California, I remind people, especially adults, you're already paying for it. So why don't you take advantage of what California is trying to do for you? Because we have been a leader across the country. So if you're already paying for this program, maybe you should partake in it. The different medicines and other tactics that are used for cessation have improved. And lastly, I always tell people that you can harangue someone who's addicted until you're blue in the face. I, as a kid, would go and my dad got a kick out of it, but I would make little signs and hang it by his nightstand that said "Cancer cures smoking," and he thought that was very funny. But unfortunately, it came to fruition. But the point is that telling someone that they're harming themselves doesn't always work. What I have found that caused my father to realize the regret of smoking in our faces for all those years was he realized, he had an epiphany, that he was hurting his loved ones. When you tell a person who is addicted to tobacco products that you are harming your family, and those you love around you just by what you're consuming, that often makes them think about it differently.
Yeah, there's a saying in the recovery community that you're sick and tired of being sick and tired. And the reality is that you're not going to quit vaping, or kids aren't going to quit vaping unless they want to. They have to want to do it. That's a decision that they're going to have to make. And I think Joseph brought up an excellent point. When you come from a place, you're not harming yourself. You're doing harm to your family, and you're doing harm to those you love. Once you get to that point where they make a decision, I'm done, well, then you can go into more of the replacement type behaviors, making sure that you have connections with others, making sure that, popping in a stick of gum instead of vaping, making sure you stay busy, making sure you stay occupied, trying not to think about it, doing healthy behaviors. Because once you get past that initial hump, it's just a matter of changing your behaviors. And when you do that, I think that you'll find some success.
So in our office, we also have quit kits. I saw Johanna making side eye at me. So in those quit kits, we have, fidget toys. It's got resources for cessation and intervention services. So for those students who are ready to explore quitting. But I think the other really important thing is us as adult allies. Just knowing that nicotine addiction is one of the hardest ones to quit, and that what feels like, well, I told you the answer is to stop, right? And just seeing the student come back again and again and again, and not getting frustrated or angry or showing those emotions, because it is extremely hard. And so just continuing to be that caring and compassionate adult in their life in this particular moment on this issue, because maybe they don't have that at home, or maybe you are that one person. And so just continuing to be that person and to show up, because the minute that we don't show up, we've also failed them. So I think that that's just a really important thing for us to come from as adult allies.
I think another way that we can help is through, like, what FNL does is we help create positive social norms around not abusing these substances, and like showing that, hey, the majority of people actually don't do this, and making sure that people have like a safe landing pad to where they can see that it's okay and it's actually normal to not abuse these products. And obviously, like, speaking as a youth, as someone like who's younger, and like piggybacking on what Becca said, I think if I were like having to go through recovery, like, I think having an adult ally or someone to guide me through it is like the most important part, in knowing that you have resources out there. And I think that's just what people need, like, to just know that there is someone out there, there is help, like there is a way, there's the light at the end of the tunnel.
Okay, thank you. And for our last and final question, can secondhand exposure to vape aerosol pose health risk, especially in enclosed spaces?
Yes.
Yes.
I think we touched on that.
It can also cause challenges in the outdoor environment too, because even in the outdoor environment, we may not have any prevailing winds. You may be in, say, an outdoor dining environment where you are walking and or sitting in an environment where it may not be controlled, and a person walks by, and it doesn't just drift off into space. It does come down, because particulate matter actually drifts and comes downward into the environment where we are at. So even in an outdoor environment.
Yeah, so indoors too, if you've got younger siblings, right? If you got toddlers or infants, right? They start learning by putting things in their mouth and like touching everything. And so when you do vape or smoke indoors, like Tracy said, those particulates land somewhere, and they land on the ground, they land on your furniture, they land on your children's toys, they land on your pets' toys, right? Like, so all of these things are impacted, right? And we don't always necessarily think about that, but so yeah. In a short answer, yes.
I think it's also a testament that every non-smoking sign is now inclusive of it. We shouldn't have to say smoking or vaping, but it is accepted in the law that it is all the same now.
Okay, I would like to provide space for any final closing thoughts before we end. We are at 7:25, so we have 5 minutes if there's anything else that you think that you would like your audience to know.
From the public health perspective, looking at the exposure of secondhand smoke, thirdhand smoke, and just in generalized reducing the risk of youth access, I would encourage you to communicate with your city councils, be present, and do not, if it's something you wholeheartedly believe in, stick to it. That is how it actually happened here in Benicia. It was simply because of a family where their daughter was living in a condo owned property, and the neighbor was a tobacco user, and it was coming up into her environment. She was an asthmatic, and so it had affected her, and they approached the former Mayor Patterson and brought that to her attention. And from that point, it just escalated into much more into where it is now, where you have a pretty good model policy here in Benicia. But then again, it's the enforcement of the tobacco retail license. And recently, Patty Barron, who was the code enforcement officer here in Benicia, has retired. So I do not know who that has gone to. So another question would maybe going to Chief Green and asking Chief Green and who is enforcing these basically going to the retailers and making sure that they're complying with the law that is here. And so there is the tobacco retail license, there is an annual fee to be able to sell this product here in town. And so that money is neutral. So simply it helps to fund those sources. So it's not costing the city anything. And so that's an annual fee. So there should be compliance with that and having those compliance checks and using youth decoys as well to go and make sure they're not selling to youth. So reach out to your city councils, your police departments.
So I'd like to sort of close for myself by saying, and I've said this to several parents, and it's from over 20 years experience in public education, not including my own experience in public education. But public schools are the safest place to make a mistake, in my opinion. And, you go 10 years back and kids would get suspended. They'd be sent home for vaping, for smoking, for doing these things. And while I've never lived somewhere where there's a snow day, I'd imagine that I wouldn't be disappointed when there's a snow day because I get to stay home. I get to do things that are different than school. And I'm proud that here in Benicia over the past year, working with the County Office of Education, last year we had all our middle school and high school counselors trained with Healthy Futures, which is part of the Stanford University Tobacco Toolkit. And earlier this year, myself, Mr. Nelson, were able to attend a Y-Vape presentation. And that was then recorded, and I was able to provide that to all our middle school administrators and high school administrators as another means of correction, really an intervention to steer our children in the correct path.
From a school perspective, in doing this 20 plus years as well, the perception does not match the reality. And that's the message that I've been saying for the last 15 years since I've been in administration is the perception does not match the reality. So you saw 11% of students have tried it. At the middle school, that number is even smaller. So know that when you hear the middle school has a vaping problem, the high school has a vaping problem, that the perception does not match the reality. The reality is that we have kids such as these folks from Friday Night Live far outweigh the other things that we see happening at schools. And we need to focus more on the positive things that happen in our schools as opposed to perseverating on the negative things that happen in our schools. So know that our schools are a very safe place for our kids and that we have way more positive things happening than we do negative things happening.
So for the 2P program, I would just like to say that Benicia, there is a lot of services available through the 2P grant. The district has utilized almost every single one, if not every single one. You've got intervention, cessation services. You also have prevention education. We've got our positive youth development strategy here. And we also provide technical assistance to our district staff and also our school site staff. So, I mean, there's a very comprehensive effort being made in the city of Benicia and at the school district to make sure that our students are able to get these services. I want to thank the students. You guys always come through, and I get more nervous when you guys are up there than I think you do. So thank you for that. I don't know if I was back there pacing, but there was no reason to do that. So yeah, thanks. You guys did a great job.
Yeah, actually, I was gonna thank you guys for inviting us, you to talk, and I really feel like I learned a lot. I really appreciate you inviting me and Caleb to be on this, and I really hope that we could work more in the future. And yeah, thank you for being like really good help and alliances for us. And yeah, thank you.
I'd like to add that our enemy is not the smokers, and that's why I'm glad that these tobacco retail licenses don't punish. Just like I hear the schools are fortunately looking at other ways of addressing the addiction of the youth. I want to stress that the tobacco retail license that's being proposed in Vallejo is also non-punitive for youth that purchase these. It's the tobacco retailers that will be punished for violating the law. It's big tobacco that has been targeting our communities, and especially targeting, different aspects of the community that they've been trying to ally with. I do want to also point out that despite that, you do have rights, and you do have right to clean air. So I recently spoke at Vallejo's Citizens Air Monitoring Network, and so I think it's important that everyone advocate for themselves and for their right to be able to have a smoke-free environment.
And we are at time. Thank you, everybody, for participating tonight. This was a it's an eye-opening experience, but also not a surprising experience. I knew that there would be some really strong voices here tonight. I do want to give a special shout out to Mr. Starkweather. He is our Benicia Friday Night Live advisor. He is home super, super sick. He wanted to be here so bad, but he... another positive adult ally is the reason why these young people succeed and why they choose not to use. So that is really our key message for our program. Thank everybody and good night.